giving you the real from A to Z surrounding the Dallas Cowboys. News, updates, rumors, transactions, takes, and more. So strap up, Cowboys Nation, and start your day off with A to Z Sports. Live with Will Steele.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. Good morning, good people. Welcome to A to Z Sports Live, presented by Boston Scientific. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're on Facebook. And of course, I am your host, Will Skywalker. Still, apologies for the late start here. Technical difficulties, but it's all good. We here, we live, and we are going inside of Cowboys minicamp in the scientific method today with my brother from another, Patrik Walker of DallasCowboys.com. Now that's at the top of the hour, so we're going to jump straight into the roundup, get to some house cleaning. Cowboys signed a player. Also, a quick injury update. Don't fret, nothing to fear, but we do have to talk about it just to make sure that we are good to go, Cowboys Nation. Again, apologies, Bomb Squad, but we here.
Bomb Squad!
That's the issue you run into when you're not, the big letter networks. You don't have the greatest of resources, but we make it work. And today kind of had a little bit of technical difficulties with the streaming service, but we here, man. We got it together. And honestly, the most important thing is that we're able to come live and give you kind of the inside info of what's going on down there at mini camp, heading into training camp with none other than Patrik Walker of DallasCowboys.com. So here's what we're going to do. We got about 10 minutes before he comes on. So let's just jump straight into the roundup, and coming out of the roundup, we should be getting OC, and we'll have a good show, Cowboys Nation. Won't be a long one, but it'll be a good one. So let's do it.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Time.
It's time! It is time for...
It's time for the morning roundup. Round 'em up, boys.
Hey, yo. So Dallas got active in the free agent market yesterday out of nowhere. Interesting. They signed defensive end Ben Banogu. I'm saying that right? If I'm not, feel free to correct me. Here's what the Colts writers and reporters had to say about this, the defensive end Ben Banogu. He says Banogu will hit free agency after 4 years in Indianapolis, in which he wasn't able to sustain a significant role in the Colts defense. Former second-round pick, by the way, Cowboys Nation. 27-year-old recorded 2.5 sacks as a rookie, but wasn't able to build off that promise and was inactive for 16 games over his final 3 seasons in Indianapolis. Now, in 2022, he did grow into a role on special teams. His 5 special teams tackles were 7th on the Colts, and his 232 special teams snaps were 5th. From 2019 to 2021, he only played 100 total snaps on special teams. So he saw an uptick on special teams last season, and I wonder if this was something that Bones Fossil had a lot to say about. Now, reclamation projects, Dan Quinn has been known to grab a guy who just hasn't quite been able to put it all together yet, and then boom, next thing you know, these players are being productive for Dan Quinn. The highlight of that example is none other than Jaron Kearse. I'm not expecting a Jaron Kearse type of situation here with the defensive end. If anything, this feels more like, hey, we got to get the amount of bodies to camp, and if anything were to come of this kid, we can at least put him on special teams, because that room is extremely deep, and I have a hard time believing this guy is going to be able to crack it. Now, look, he can go out there and camp and go off. He can go out there in preseason and go off. but this feels a lot more like a special team signing, kind of I hate to use the term camp body. I feel like I'm disrespecting these players when I say that sometimes, but a down roster addition as they get ready for camp. They need 90 guys when they get down there. So we'll see what happens. I'm not really making a big deal out of this one, but it is Cowboys news, and they did sign a guy, so got to bring it up. Then yesterday at minicamp, kind of a scare, not gonna lie, a bit of a scare when these tweets started to roll around, and we'll talk to Pat in a few minutes about this. But CD Lamb had an injury scare during minicamp after what seemed to be a highlight catch. He got dinged up, had a lower leg injury, but he did return to the field for a few more plays and then was chilling after that. Per Pat, and we'll talk to Pat about this more, don't expect really to see him for the rest of, which is one day today, if they even do anything today, the rest of minicamp, and you'll likely see him come training camp. But yeah, a bit of an injury scare there. We'll discuss that here in a few minutes, but I'm not overly concerned if the people down there aren't overly concerned, and he seemed to be in good spirits. He was on the sideline chilling, and didn't seem to be a big deal. So we should be good in that stance, Cowboys Nation. All right. Perfect timing. I told y'all we'd be good to go here and we'd be able to rock. I know I got a bit of a late start, but we're not going to have a late start here with the scientific method, Cowboys Nation. We're going to bring in Patrik Walker of DallasCowboys.com right now and get this thing started. All right, here we go.
Dropping science. I'm dropping science.
What's good brother?
Hey, man, it's my wave. You always bring me in on the right wave, man. What's good, my guy?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have you on here after some technical difficulties. Now we back into the flow of things, and I'm just ready to talk ball with you, bro.
Oh, man, in ball we shall talk. Some very lively things occurred thus far these first 2 days of a 3-day minicamp for the Cowboys. Today, Thursday being the final day. We'll see if they run light. I think they will, regardless of what did or did not happen with CeeDee Lamb. I just don't expect that they run at the same pace today, because if you look at last season, Mike McCarthy cut the minicamp short because he wanted to give the guys more time. But we'll see how it goes, because giving the guys more time, I think that's the premise for moving minicamp up, because normally it's middle of the month. So we'll give that a look later today in a couple hours or so. But for what we've already seen, what I've already witnessed, your
tweets was getting me hype the last couple of days, man. A lot of y'all down there actually appreciate y'all covering it the way y'all were covering it. And you mentioned Mike McCarthy giving the guys time and whatnot, and Mike and Dak had a lot to say over the last couple of days, and I feel like every time they talk, Pat, they kind of sprinkle a little bit of what this offense could be, and I'm sitting here trying to pull any little tidbit of information I can get. They even coined the name, Texas Coast?
Texas Coast. Texas Coast offense. And for those that don't catch the play on words, McCarthy is from the coaching tree that typically dictates West Coast offense. Mm-hmm. And Kellen Moore had run a variation of that for the most part in the McCarthy era. But the question was asked to QB1 yesterday, is it going back to a pure West Coast offense where you have a lot of those short bubble screens and things like that, kind of, executing those as quasi run plays, if you will? And Dak Prescott, with a nice little coy smile, he said, we call it the Texas Coast in the quarterback's room because it's not an offense that's out there right now, end quote. So that's intriguing in of itself. If the Cowboys are, putting together kind of a Frankenstein, because we know that they're going to keep the Dak language, quote unquote, as McCarthy said.
Yeah.
But they're also bringing in some fresh ideas from Schottenheimer as offensive coordinator. Obviously, though, he won't be calling plays. He's still tasked with coordinating the offense alongside Mike McCarthy. Dak's going to have a ton more input, and he's always had input. I would say at least from year 2 onward, he's had more and more input as the years have progressed. But going into this year, I mean, it's his offense. McCarthy said that himself. It is Dak's offense.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting where he was like, I want my quarterback to essentially have total control of the offense. So I'm like, so he didn't have total control before, which I get it. Certain players, especially young guys.
No, he did not.
They need to have that type of coaching. But I mean, we're talking about year 8 guy. He pretty much seen a ton of things out there. So I actually like to hear that from McCarthy.
Well, it's different in the capacity of because I don't want anyone to take this as saying or what McCarthy said as implying that Dak Prescott had no control, because when it comes to the Twitter sphere, if you say apple,
That's
that
true.
means
That's
you
true.
said oranges suck, and that's not how it works in the real world. So what McCarthy's basically saying is that Dak will have a massive hand in coordinating the offense. So that's going to be the difference, because as far as having a hand in the offense on game days in real time, you've seen him with the checkdowns and things like that. Absolutely, he's had that for years, kind of had that carte blanche for years. But now it's different because when McCarthy came in, keep in mind, Kellen Moore was already here. Yeah. So Kellen Moore outlasted the previous regime, being Jason Garrett. So McCarthy didn't want to take the play calling duties away from him, et cetera, et cetera. So that puts us in a situation where McCarthy kind of played the passenger seat in that capacity. But with Kellen Moore out of the picture, McCarthy's not looking at Dak and saying, hey, you have to defer to Schottenheimer, who just got here. He's looking at Dak and saying, this is year 8. We've been together several years now. Yeah. I know what you can do on the field physically. I know what you can do cerebrally. So go do it. And he made an interesting statement, McCarthy did, when he said that there might be times in OTAs and minicamp where Dak will come up to him and say, what are you seeing? What do you think we should do with this next play? And McCarthy's like, what do you think we should do with this next play? So that's the difference in 2023.
Yeah, I think it was Christy Scales who I don't want to misrepresent here, but she asked Dak about the offense and the nuances and the tempo. And Dak talked about how they wanted to become more of an aggressor. And for those who may have missed it, let me go ahead and play this audio for you real quick.
I think it's all of it. Obviously, when you can change your pace, you're going to catch them off guard. You want as many at-bats as we like to say, so we're going to try to get as many plays as we can, more plays, more chances for the big plays. And then lastly, we want to be the aggressors. You know what I'm saying? We want to be attacking these guys, and when we're able to switch the tempo, whether it be no huddle, whether it be a series of them, whether it be slow it down, we just want to make sure that we're dictating the pace, we're being the aggressors, and the game is on our terms and not theirs.
Brother, this sounds like a totally different mental approach from years past, honestly, where we heard a lot of take what the defense gives you, and it felt like in certain spots the defense was dictating to the Cowboys offense. So, I think you're hearing it in Dak, you're hearing it in McCarthy, but they want to be the aggressor. Yep. Are you seeing – I know it's hard, minicamp, you're not really showing a lot of things, but are you seeing, Dak and McCarthy kind of coming together to put this, different spin on offense from an aggressive standpoint?
Yeah, I am seeing that. And obviously there's not going to be a lot revealed in OTAs or minicamp, particularly during the media availability portion of it, because they just don't want to tip their hands. But they're still in the install phases. So things are still a bit raw in that capacity. But from what I'm seeing, the shots are being taken downfield. Perfect example. Look at the play that happened with Brandin Cooks on yesterday in team drills. Dak Prescott drops back. Brandin Cooks goes on a go route. And just absolutely smokes double coverage. And that included the safety trying to get the angle on him, but the speed was just too much, could not get the angle. Dak Prescott drops in an absolute dot, 60 yards, in stride, touchdown. So those are the kind of aggressive plays that the Cowboys are looking to make. So I mentioned this in a mailbag that's coming up. I think it drops today on the.com. Someone asked about McCarthy leaning heavily on the run. I want everyone to understand what that means. McCarthy's saying this offseason that he's willing to sacrifice offensive production for wins. That basically means that he doesn't care about a 40 burger. He cares about the victory. So if that means the Cowboys only average 26, 27 points per game, which is still damn good in the NFL, but they get a +2 in the win column versus you score 40, but your defense is gassed. And they give up a big play that costs you the game. That's where the run game comes in. It's game management more than anything. Look at what happened in Jacksonville. Look at what happened in Green Bay. Yep. McCarthy learned from that. Dak learned from that. They don't want to see that happen again. So you go and you trade for Brandin Cooks. You go and you draft a guy like Deuce Vaughn. You start to see Kevontae Turpin getting targets in both OTAs and minicamp, and I've seen a lot of that as well. And it all lends to the Cowboys wanting to make big plays and stretch the field. You go and draft Luke Schoonmaker to combine him or tandem him with Jake Ferguson, pay him the shot. So yes, this offense, as far as talent goes, it's set up to really be the aggressor. And when you listen to what Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy are saying, neither one of them are implying that they're going to sit back and let the defense dictate to them. They're going to dictate to the defense.
Hear that, man. I love to hear that, man.
I love to say it.
Let me spin the block though, because you mentioned the deep ball to Brandin Cooks and then kind of went on your way. Nah, the way y'all put it on Twitter, man, that thing was a beauty. And it was we finally got a chance to see Brandin Cooks speed. And I want to quote you in the article on .com. You said, quote, "The vet took the first step toward reminding everyone he's hiding a jetpack underneath his shoulder pads." It's like that. That's what it's looking like out there with him.
You know what? You've seen a lot of football. I've seen a lot of football. And there's a difference between knowing a guy's fast and seeing it in real time. And Brandin Cooks has not played a regular season snap with the Cowboys. So to this point, all we know of Brandin Cooks is the speed we've seen on TV and on film in his time with his previous teams. Yesterday was the first real look that I got with these two eyes at Brandin Cooks' speed in real time. And let me tell you, that is different. That is just what he did. And I know people are saying, well, who were the defensive backs? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter. If I said Jalen Tolbert made that play instead of Brandin Cooks, you'd be justified in asking who the defensive backs were because of the season Jalen Tolbert is coming off of, and the competition that he's going against kind of qualifies his progress. You know what Brandin Cooks can do. Six-time 1,000-yard receiver. He's, no pun intended, cooked the best of the best as far as around the league to get where he is. So it doesn't matter who he smoked in practice because it doesn't matter who would have been there. They would have gotten smoked, and he smoked them. So Brandin Cooks, his speed is better than advertised. When he said at the Home Run Derby, he was asked if he still has sub 4.35 speed, and he said, "Oh, absolutely." We all smiled, and we're like, "Okay, we hear you. We hear you." And then he showed it yesterday, and then afterwards in the locker room, he was asked if he felt like the Cowboys defense now understands just how fast he is. And he smirked and he said, "Well, you don't know until you know." And now they know. So that in honor of that, I broke out the notorious, because if you don't know, now you know. Right?
That's
so
hard.
yeah.
I ain't gonna lie to you. That's hard.
So Brandin Cooks, he is the real deal when it comes to speed. And better than that, I should say better still, is his ability to run routes. I know a lot of people consider him this deep threat, which you should, because he is that. But what he can also do is run routes very effectively. And he's very deceptive off of the release. His releases are very deceptive because since he can run routes so well, and he's so consistent in every one of his releases, and Dak Prescott pointed this out very eloquently yesterday, if you're a defensive back, you really don't know if it's a go route or if it's a slant or if it's a hook or whatever the case may be. Right. And that puts you in a very precarious position because one of those is going to be a go route. So he can, so he can set you up with some of these underneath routes because you're going to back up initially. You're going to give him that space, and he's just going to operate and just dice you up at the second level. And then the moment you cheat forward, it's good night, Lucy. So
I think that's what makes him dangerous. Is we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's not that he's fast, but he knows how to use his speed to his advantage. He's just not. I use this name, and sorry if you're listening, which you probably aren't, but John Ross, he's not John Ross. He's not a guy that just can run 4.2 straight line. He can actually route you up, and he knows how to.
He can play football.
Yes. Asante Samuel Jr., sorry for Florida State fans. He put him in a blender when he played him, I believe it was last season, and it was because of how he was using his speed against Samuels Jr., and he did it against their linebackers too. And I'm just sitting here, watching that film and then hearing what you're saying about the deep ball yesterday. And I'm just imagining how you talked about how if you don't know, now you know. Well, no team really knows how this offense with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Tony Pollard and these boys look like with a true speed threat. No offense to Bryce Butler, but not a Bryce Butler who will go out there for 2 or 3 snaps and run on the go route, but a true speed threat that can take it from a screen pass, from a slant to a 9 route. It is something the Cowboys haven't had since, dare I say, Terry Glenn. No,
Yeah, that's fair because some will bring up Tavon Austin, but Austin didn't materialize here
he didn't.
in Dallas, and Austin also didn't enter the Cowboys organization with nearly the resume
Right.
that Brandin Cooks
Like a
does.
gadget
So,
guy.
yeah, there you go. And Brandin Cooks is not going to be a gadget
Yeah.
guy. He is, like I said, and like you said, dare we say it, he's the speediest situation we've had here as far as a complimentary receiver since the days of Terry Glenn.
Which rest in
And
peace, by the way.
yeah, rest in peace to the King, Terry Glenn. And that should excite Cowboys fans because this is not to say that CeeDee Lamb is slow. You know he's not, right? So we shouldn't have to state it, but okay, stated. It's not to say that Amari Cooper was slow because he wasn't. Shouldn't have to be stated, but okay, stated. And that's just not Michael Gallup's bag as far as speed is concerned. So that's
Right.
the obvious. But Brandin Cooks comes in and he's basically Kevontae Turpin speed with a much better NFL resume, better at route running,
The
better
legit
at
wide receiver.
Yeah, better at playbook recognition and absorption and things like that. Because that's one thing Kevontae Turpin is still working to learn is the playbook. Keep in mind, he was a rookie last year. So when McCarthy said if Turpin wants to be more involved in the offense going forward, and he does, he needs to, hammer down on the playbook. It's not a case. That's not the situation with Brandin Cooks. You see how quickly he's picking up on the playbook. He's making plays in OTAs and minicamp already. I'm ready to get to training camp. These guys get the pads on and see what he can do. And I mean, again, we know what he can do, but basically to see what he can do against Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore and that three-headed safety monster. But Cooks is going to get his, man. I don't care who's back there. He's going to get his.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a legit number 2 wide receiver. I don't know when's the last time he had a number 1 in CeeDee Lamb opposite of him. So he's going to get a ton of looks, and I think he'll take advantage of it.
Oh, yeah.
On the other side of the ball, last week we talked about wide receiver 4, the war for WR4, right? This week I saw you post about LB3, the battle for LB3, and a guy like Jabril Cox got a chance to gain some momentum. And we really didn't talk about Jabril last week, but I wanted to bring him up because he made a couple plays this week in minicamp. But how's he looking going into year 2 after that ACL? Because that LB3 battle is legitimate and important, honestly.
Yeah, and I know everybody's going to say, well, not everyone's doing well in practice and OTAs and minicamp this season, and I agree. And there are guys who are not, but we're talking about the guys who are. But to my point, and this is where I respectfully disagree with Mike McCarthy, I don't see, and again, I don't see every single thing because media availability is only, well, this time it's full of minicamp, but thus from what I'm seeing, I don't see yet the progression of Kelvin Joseph. So I know what McCarthy said yesterday, quote unquote, best stretch of his career with the Cowboys thus far. I don't see it yet, and I'm waiting to see that. But I say that to say, when I say a guy is progressing well, he's progressing well. Jabril Cox on Tuesday, he had 2 PBUs in a row, 2-minute drill within 10 yards of the end zone. And the second one would have been the game saver. And that's why he was swarmed by his teammates immediately after. And it was Cooper Rush throwing the ball for those that say, it was Cooper Rush throwing the ball. But here's why it doesn't matter, because the quality of the throw was pinpoint. Both of those throws by Cooper Rush were exactly where they needed to be. But the best pass cannot beat the best defense. So Jabril Cox was exactly where he needed to be. He read, he reacted, and he got to the spot. Those 3 things coming from a player like Jabril Cox, who is now a good bit removed from his torn ACL, you knew he had the IQ to recognize the play. So we saw him recognize the play on both of those PBUs. And then he reacted. So now you're looking at his knee. Can he plant and explode? He did. How strong is the explosion to the point where can he get to the spot and beat the ball to the spot, beat the receiver to the spot where the ball is going? And he did. All 3 of those things I saw. He checked all 3 boxes, 2 consecutive plays in a row, 2 critical plays to close out the Cowboys practice on Tuesday, and then had another strong practice on Wednesday. So as far as the linebacker 3 conversation, I'm still waiting to see DeMarvion Overshown get his legs, and that makes sense. He's a rookie.
Right.
He hasn't had training camp, so we're not saying Overshown is a bust. We're not saying that. That's you get real football talk here, not clickbait stuff, whatever.
No.
Overshown, I would watch him closer in training camp. But as it stands, Jabril Cox has the lead for LB3 behind Damone Clark and Leighton Van Der Esch, and that's based upon what I'm seeing in OTAs and especially this week in minicamp. And speaking of the linebackers, I spotted LVE
Yeah, I saw that. I saw you. Posted
Yeah,
that.
eyebrow went up like the Rock in '07. Yeah, so I happened to look over because at one point they split the drills, obviously, first team, second team, etc. So I'm looking over at the second team, and then I happen to glance over at the first team, and lo and behold, I see number 55 rushing off of the edge. So I was like, okay, maybe this is just a blitz play and it's a jailbreak. No, because they ran it back and he went down to the edge again. So not to say LVE is an edge rusher. Nope, not saying that. What I'm saying is Dan Quinn is using what we like to call as experiment season to really have some fun with his guys. LVE is taking a few snaps off of the edge as an edge rusher. That could be interesting. Maybe you see that package unveiled in the regular season. Maybe you don't. He wants it in his bag. That's why he's trying to install it right now to see if it sticks. And then you saw dropping down to the defensive line. A lot of people want to know how Mazi Smith is doing. Looks great. Here's another interesting tidbit. The inference is that Mazi Smith will come in and rotate with Jonathan Hankins, and Hankins has been getting the majority of the reps with the ones, rightfully so, in minicamp. But yesterday there were several packages where Mazi and Jonathan Hankins were lined up side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Hankins as the nose tackle and Mazi as the 3 tech. And that goes to what the Cowboys were saying still about them seeing some pass rush ability, a lot of pass rush ability out of Mazi that wasn't tapped into with Michigan. So things are getting real spicy on that Dan Quinn side of the ball. I tell you what.
You read my mind, bro, because my favorite thing to come out of this entire week was the return of Jonathan Hankins. And to see what if they would line him up with Mazi Smith. And then we see the pictures and we hear and we get your tweet and your reports that, hey, Mazi Smith is in that first unit with Jonathan Hankins from time to time. And I personally think those two boys can be the modern day. You remember Pat Williams and Kevin Williams, the Williams bros?
Yeah.
From Minnesota. Look, I know it was a different time, where you're not asking these guys to be pass rush guys, but Kevin Williams gave you some of that pass rush. I think Mazi can do that, while Jonathan Hankins can give you that Pat Williams, the run guy. So, seeing those two guys together was exciting. But you got a chance to get an exclusive with Jonathan Hankins, and you dropped kind of a nugget on that exclusive. Can you go into a little detail? I don't want you to spoil your entire article here, but can you go into a little detail on what Hankins was talking about in regards to Mazi Smith and himself playing together?
Well, first of all, Hankins, his smile just ear to ear the entire time. And a lot of these interviews, when you're talking to these players, they'll use the word excited. I'm excited for this and I'm thrilled for this. And but when I say it was just emanating, it was just pouring out of Hankins the whole time I was speaking to him, to the point where a couple of times he just stopped and kind of laughed at himself because he couldn't stop smiling. And I asked him about how it feels to have a full offseason with Dan Quinn. Remember, he came in just ahead of the trade deadline. So this is his first full offseason. And he was basically saying that, Dan Quinn is as advertised and he loves playing for Dan Quinn. And then he kind of started talking about the defensive lineman and just how close-knit that room is. And then, of course, I asked him about his early impressions on Mazi Smith. And he said that he's very, very, very excited to play alongside Mazi. And he paused and laughed even harder. He said, I know this is coming from a Buckeye. He said, but he was he basically clapped when he saw Mazi Smith taken with the first round pick. And because he said that he sees greatness in Mazi Smith. He said Mazi Smith he enters the room as one of the strongest players on the entire Cowboys roster. This is Jonathan Hankins.
Who's one
saying
of the strongest.
this. This is Jonathan Hankins saying this. And he said it with a look on his face like, I don't think you understand. And I'm like, maybe I don't, but we're about to find out. But he's elated to play with Mazi Smith and to play alongside Mazi Smith in those packages like I'm talking about, like I spoke about a few minutes ago. And then Hankins just went on to just rave about how not only close-knit the defensive line room is and the defense as a whole is, but he said that defensive line room is, quote unquote, we're some bad MFers, end quote. And I asked him straight up, I said, well, this defense and this pass rush was one of the best in the league last year. I mean, it was top 2, and at times it wasn't number 2.
Right.
So I said, where does this go from here, knowing that, you're healthy and you're in the building for the entire year. Mazi Smith is in the building. Also, Diggy Zua coming off a breakout year. You can go down the list on and on and on. And basically, he said, we're going to pick up right where we left off. Only this time it's going to be scarier for offenses. So Scarier is nice. I like scary hours for opposing offenses. Yeah, this Cowboys defense is and if you look at it, there's no reason there should be a fall off. They were able to retain LVE, able to retain Dono. You bring in some new pieces like Mazi Smith, DeMarvion Overshawn. Jabril Cox is trending in the right direction right now. Damone Clark did not have a full off season of preparation last year as a rookie because he was recovering from that spinal fusion surgery. Now he has a full off season to participate and acclimate and level up in year 2. So Hankins he's on to something.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Lawrence, another stellar year. Micah Parsons saying, you know what, I'm going to get my sacks, but I want to be an Aaron Donald. I want to be an impact guy. Trevon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore.
I mean, look, we came out of camp, bro, and it was, Watkins and Bohanna were kind of, Watkins, Bohanna, Neville got, those were your guys, Tristan Hill in the interior. Right. Anthony Brown and was out on the outside. It wasn't the same. Now you're coming into camp with Mazi and Hankins to start. Gilmore on the outside. Damone Clark in year 2. So there's more athleticism. Salute to Anthony Barr giving all he can give, but there's more athleticism now behind those guys. And when you bring up a Jabril Cox, I do think that this linebacker unit is in, I think they're on pace to have one of the best years that we've seen in a while because of what's in front of them. And then also, what's behind them? Let's just be real too. Like that unit is so complimentary.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's
a little bit going on.
Just a little something.
A little bit.
It's so complimentary that I think one of these units are going to benefit from it, and I think it's going to be the linebacker group, bro.
I think, when it comes to the defense, one hand washes the other, the other. You got 3 levels, defensive line, second level linebackers, and linebackers / your boundary corners, and then you got your safety unit behind you. The only question going into this year for Dan Quinn's offseason, Dan Quinn's 2023 season, was depth at linebacker, and can you figure out another boundary guy? Well, you figured it out boundary-wise. You went and got Stephon Gilmore. So then it's like, okay, Jordan Lewis is coming back. You got Deron Bland. So depth isn't technically an issue at cornerback, but you want to get some anyway, which is why you trade up for Eric Scott, who, by the way, is off to a strong start in camp. So much so that he's taking early reps from Kelvin Joseph, which goes back to what I was saying. He's taking a lot of reps from Kelvin Joseph. So the bigger question was linebacker depth, LB3 and LB4. Where are you at with that? You know what you got in LVE. You've seen where you're going with Damone Clark, but huge question marks behind them. If Jabril Cox can continue on his current trajectory, the LB3 question is answered. And then that frees up a guy like DeMarvion Overshawn to truly be used however Dan Quinn wants to utilize him. So the linebacker question might be getting answered right in front of our very faces. And again, we'll see what happens when training camp comes and they start going full speed. But as it stands, Jabril Cox looks outside of pads, which is all we can go on right now. He looks real LSU-ish, and I hope he can transfer that over to Oxnard.
I love to hear it, man. And we're not going to see too many battles of the defensive line and Hankins and Mazi against offensive line until we get to camp. Pads, I think he mentioned like the 31st. He said May 31st, Coach McCarthy, but I think he meant July 31st, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay. So July 31st, we'll see the pads. But the offensive line, it seemed like things are back to normal. I don't know if they went back into the flashpoint to reset things, and they got tied. They got the Smith bros on the left side now. But you prefaced it a couple weeks ago. You said, guys, it's going to be experimentations going on. And I admitted this the other day when I heard I saw the Gelkin tweet, and he said something along the lines of, hey, I'd be surprised if Tyron is not starting at right tackle. I got a little nervous. But then we hear Coach come out before the first practice and say, hey, this week we're working Tyron at left and Tyler at left guard. And I said, okay, maybe this is just them covering all bases because they didn't do this last summer, Pat, and they got bit a little bit. So maybe this year they're saying, all right, we're still out. Let's cover all our bases in case any of these things happen and get all these guys some work. So now I'm kind of more RELAX, relaxed, right? So was things back to normal there? How did some of the guys, the Let's Go's look on the right side, the Doges and whatnot when they did these shifting around? But did you feel like things were back to normal?
Well, you have to define normal in early June. And if you're asking, and without Terrence Steele on top of it being early June, again, it's experiment season. So on Tuesday, it was very pleasant to see Tyron Smith back at left tackle, Tyler Smith moving to left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center. But then when you look at the right side, Zach Martin's going to be Zach Martin, but I know people saw Josh Ball getting some reps there at right guard. Doesn't mean anything wrong is wrong with Zach Martin. Is Zach Martin, does he need to be out there in early June? No, he doesn't. So Cowboys are getting some guys some work at right guard to see what they have there. Right tackle is where it kind of gets interesting because Willetsko was getting some reps at right guard as well, but he was getting the majority of his reps at right tackle. And I think going into this season, now that he's healthy, former 5th round pick, Cowboy, he has a high ceiling. Go back and look at his film from college. Suffered a shoulder subluxation, but he's healthy now. I think he has the lead horse. He's on the lead horse for swing tackle with the Cowboys. And I like what I'm seeing from him. I was excited going into training camp to get a look at him because of his college tape. And then, of course, before training camp could even really get going, separated the shoulder, and that was pretty much it for his season. Yeah. And I'm excited again. And hopefully he can remain healthy. And if he does, then that solves the swing tackle equation for the Cowboys. Now, Wednesday, it was kind of back to experimentation because Tyron Smith doesn't practice on Wednesdays. For those that don't know, it's a veteran rest day, especially for him. So he didn't practice. So you saw some guys like Chuma Adoga getting moved around. Tyler Smith was still taking some reps at left guard. You saw him in one of my images line up against Mazi Smith. Really wish I could have given the video of that. But
Thanos versus Hawk.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. But you saw Chuma getting some reps at left tackle in a couple of those images. So while Chuma does have a lot of ability at left guard, obviously he played there at the NFL level. Cowboys did say they were going to look to flex him, try to get some versatility, and they've already started that with minicamp. So Wednesday was a little bit different because Tyron was on a rest day. Zach is being Zach, right? He's going to be ready. Don't worry about him. But Tuesday is the linchpin in the week for me in this discussion because it told me that the Cowboys, while they are willing to experiment to see who can play where, at the end of the day, I'm confident that they just know what the right thing is. They know what the right thing. Spike Lee. It's a Spike Lee joint. Do the right thing.
Come on. Don't play with us when we get down to the camp and we see Terrence Steele at left guard. Don't do that, man. I get trying to figure things out in case something happens, but you also want to get into some type of continuity flow with your actual starters. Because look, I don't think they're going to play in the preseason. Now, this is very early, but I don't think that entire offensive line is going to play in the preseason. So you need to use these practice reps in camp, and I don't know, maybe you can let us know here. Are they going to be doing any scrimmages with different teams this offseason?
As it stands, no. Okay. Could that change? Yes. But as the days roll along and there continues to be no news on that, then the odds continue to be near zero because teams have to prep for that. Yeah. And logistically months ahead of time. Okay. So as it stands, there are no scrimmages scheduled. Be interesting to see if that changes during the summer break before training camp fires up. But as we have this conversation, there aren't any scrimmages scheduled for the Cowboys.
I figured they wouldn't go to any of the LA teams because they play them this season.
Right.
But I thought maybe they could sneak Denver in there again. But
no, it worked out for them last year, especially with the Chargers, for example, Oxnard, LA, preseason against the Chargers. Logistically, it was there. I don't know if they want to circle back and have another dance with the Denver Broncos, considering how things went last time. Things got a little frisky on the field. True. So they might want to stay away from Mile High when it comes to scrimmages.
Just real quick, Mike McCarthy mentioned something football nerdish about the zone, the outside zone things changing. And I thought that was interesting. Are they working on their run scheme yet to the public or to the reporter eye, or is this something that we'll have to wait till we get to training camp?
And we're going to have to wait for training camp to really get an eye on that. They're doing so much experimentation and while they do this second phase of install, first phase being OTAs, is that it's really hard to pin down just how accurate or inaccurate that statement is from Mike McCarthy. And really, as you know, the science is the science, the facts are the facts. And we don't have enough data right now for me to sit here and say yay or nay as far as that comment is concerned from McCarthy. So I see some flashes of it. He doesn't have a reason to lie about that. I'm confident that it's going to happen in training camp, but until I see it, I haven't seen it. And again, that's not to say it's not happening right now, but so much going on with the experimentation and, trying to get Deuce mixed in, trying to get Hunter Lipke mixed in. Rico Dowdle's getting a ton of reps along with Malik Davis as well. They're trying to figure out that running back situation to complement Tony Pollard. So when you're trying to mix in so many guys, there's only so many types of reps each guy can get. Some of these are zone reps, some of these are not.
Right.
Some of these are screens, some of these are handoffs. So second phase of the install with experimentation, it's too fluid right now. Let's get to training camp and we'll see what it really looks like.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. A lot of this is hard to really tell until we get down there. The pads start coming on, they get the popping or the thudding, and then really you get a chance to see some of these guys shine in preseason. Any other little things that we might have missed that you want to cover from training camp that might have been important?
I mean, we've touched on a lot of it, and I'll close out on this note.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm ready for training camp too. I'll close out on this note. I know a lot of people are wondering how the kicking situation is going. I am on record as saying the Cowboys need to bring in another kicker. That does not mean Tristan Vizcaino is stinking up the joint. He's actually not at all. He was 9 for 9 with his longest being 55 yards on yesterday. He was 7 for 9. He had a miss from 42, a miss from 52, but he again made a 55-yarder. So do the math there. His numbers look really good. But when it comes to a kicker competition, I want all of it. I want all of it. So I like the fact that Jerry Jones said that it's quote unquote likely the Cowboys will add a kicker before they touch down in Oxnard in late July. And we'll see if they hold to that. But I do feel as 100% as I can that even if it doesn't happen before training camp, if it doesn't, it won't be long after the start that you will see another kicker come in. And again, Tristan is doing well right now. But it doesn't mean that you want to go ahead and push all your chips in the middle of the table for him. They got to make sure they get things right with this kicker situation. Yeah,
I fully expect them to bring in another kicker. They've been doing it the last couple of seasons. But before you go, I should have started off with this, but your update on CD Lamb, because I know a lot of people kind of.
Well, the fact that we didn't start off with it should tell people that I'm not concerned. Yep. He made a play, caught a pass, went down a little bit awkwardly, but he didn't run off the field. He wasn't pulled off of the field. He stayed on for a couple more plays, which is a good sign that it's nothing major. When it was his time to come off of the field, he did, and he didn't go back in, which makes sense. And that's why I tweeted yesterday, even if they run a full practice today, I wouldn't expect that you'd see CeeDee Lamb out there because it's time to bubble wrap him until training camp. So asked around inside the building, I get the sense there is no concern whatsoever as far as CeeDee Lamb's health is concerned. And so that's great news.
Perfect, man. And like you said, the fact that we didn't start off with it, everybody should be feeling fine.
There you go.
Luke Schoolmaker out the boot, but he should be ready for training camp.
Yep, that's the expectation. He was doing some catching drills with tight ends coach Lunda Wells on yesterday, out of the boot, walking in normal shoes, normal socks, barring any kind of setback between now and training camp, which it shouldn't be because he's just dealing with the inflammation, i.e. plantar fasciitis. He'll be on the field in Oxnard when things get started. So
I think already, from last year to this year, the Cowboys are heading into Oxnard on a better health tip than they were last season. If you remember, you had issues.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
knock on wood.
Yeah, so I think good start. But we know things pop up. We just hope everybody comes out clean once we get down there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, man, look, appreciate you coming on every week, brother, and giving us the,
science.
Come on, man.
Oh, and real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you go to patreon.com or download the Patreon app. Check out The Conversation spelled with a K, my new mental health podcast that focuses on topics that transcend gender and race, but also specifically those stigmas that work against men and men of color. So tap in and let's heal and let's start thriving.
My guy, appreciate you, Pat, and we'll get with you next week, brother.
All right, talk to you soon, man. See you later.
Peace. Pat Walker, ladies and gentlemen, DallasCowboys.com, always bringing the goodness to A to Z Sports Live. Set some things up here, get back into the chat.
I'm dropping signs.
Man, we're lucky. Tell you,
I'm dropping signs.
We are extremely lucky to be getting that type of information. There we go. Opening up the lines just for a little bit here. There we go. You want to call in, you can 351-999-3787. We will, apologies if that went too loud. We will get a few callers in here. A few callers. Let me see. Okay, so he went out. That's why the audio jumped up. Gotcha. My bad if I blew y'all ears out. Still figuring that out. Told y'all that the resources are not like the big letter networks, but we got it, man. as we kind of transition here, take one quick little break, talk about Boston Scientific. Can't have the scientific method without talking about Boston Scientific. ED can affect your self-esteem and impact your most important relationships. If you're tired of pills and you've tried other potential solutions, but they have not worked, take a free online assessment that you can share with your doctor. Click the ad in the description. There's a permanent, satisfying solution to treat ED. Visit edcure.org. Get the facts and find a urologist who can offer treatment options when others do not work. Again, that's edcure.org. It ain't hard, but you can be.
You're listening to A to Z Sports.
Do it live!
At some point, hoping to broadcast
In front of the millions.
of Cowboys fans to bring you the real. But for now, strap up and here's your host, Skywalker Steele.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
Here, let me do this. There we go. I think we should be good. We should be good right now. I wear too many hats, man. I wear too many hats. I am looking though for a potential. And I say, I'm looking for a potential video editor. I'll put that out on Twitter here in probably the day or tomorrow. We got a couple callers. Let's hit the phone lines right quick. Get to some of the super chats. Then we'll roll up out of here. D Shift first up. What's good, D Shift?
Not much, man. They telling you Dalvin Cooks got released, bro.
Yeah. I saw that as the show was going. But we expected that, so it's really not major news to me. But
it's not breaking news.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that we won't have to trade or try to bid for him, it just kind of see where the money's gonna fit. I was just really interesting to hear Stephen Jones kind of allude to it, and how him and Jerry talking about just, I mean, cap kind of stuff too, but they seem to be kind of jingling that pocket a little bit more, man. So a little bit more.
Jingling. Yeah.
Jingling. So, man, we'll see. But I was, man, Jerry, I think he did an interview June 6th, one drop, and my eyes kind of got big because he's still using that flex word with Terrence Steele.
See, with Jerry, it's like maybe 1% of what he say that I really take to heart, and for the rest of it I ignore, But so I don't really get as caught, and that's just me because I've grown. I've kind of took the mentality that Jerry just a mouthpiece, kind of cheerleader mouthpiece type situation. He's not really he's not making that kind of decision in the sense of, hey, we're gonna put Terrence Steele at left guard. But I guess it's out there. It could happen. He's the owner. I get it. But I don't really listen to what Jerry has to say too much anymore, to be honest with you. So that's why I kind of ignore what he said about that. But when Gelkin come out and say, hey, man, I expect Tyron Smith to be at right tackle, I was like, whoa, wait a minute now. What are you talking about here? That kind of got me a little nervous, yeah.
Yeah, but I did like what Jerry was talking about, just kind of reemphasizing like what the O-line is, the changes that are going to be made to the O-line, and just some of the things they're going to do as far as blocking-wise. And really his biggest interest was the pass blocking, right? And he just talked about a lot of things when it talked about and everything that, y'all been kind of breaking down from how we're going to get Dak to release quicker by him not having so many option routes to have to break down. And so I think Jerry and just it was just full overhaul between the organization and kind of really looking themselves in the mirror and just understanding that why their pass blocking was so bad. Because I feel if you can be that good in run blocking with everything that you had to deal with, but your pass blocking was that bad, there had to be more issues than just the talent that was in place. I was looking at something where the O-line was ranked still top 10, and I look for it to be even better, even though, again, we have a big question at left guard. But I was talking to Swain.
Not if they put Tyler Smith there. That question's answered.
Yeah, I guess the big question is, are they going to do it, right?
The big
and
question
are they
is,
going to be smart enough?
what happens when Tyron goes down? That's the big question.
Yeah, now even then, but I say for me, because you have Edoga, you have they have a lot of offensive lines that are bad, man, and so relative to the field, yeah, you might have because I was even thinking about with the Micah Parsons comments, him talking about the 2000 Ravens thing.
The conference has been locked.
Skip and Shannon were kind of dismissing it but these guys were playing different and they weren't scoring. But there's not a lot of other defenses that are like relative to the field and what you have, right? You don't have to be the 2000 Ravens, but if you're the defense that's letting teams scoring you the least and your offense is humming like we feel like it should be, what's that equate to,
Shit, I love Micah's mentality. He don't want to just be good. He want to be, great. And if everybody else can kind of have that mentality, he's got to start with the leader, right? Everybody else can have that mentality. I think they can achieve it. I think they got the coaches to do it. I think they've got enough of the top echelon players, Micah Parsons, Diggs, Gilmore, to do it. And they got on defense, I'm saying, they got enough quality role guys to really be one of them ones. But like I've been saying for years, if you want to do that, you've got to make people not want to run against you, and not because you're scoring points, but because you're just so damn dominant on the interior to be able to do it. And Micah understood that. That's why he said, "Go get me Deron Payne, go get me Mazi Smith, go get me guys that could free up my guys around me."
But how you're even talking about with him and how he was just kind of pressing Sam Williams, hey man, I'm not stopping you from getting 10 sacks.
Yeah, right.
You gotta go. He's not coddling dudes. He's telling them
go be great.
Go do it then.
Go be great. I'm not holding you back from being great.
Yeah, so I like the mentality as well. Also, I was listening to a Jordan Lewis interview. In closing, Jordan Lewis was he had a little interview where he was talking about just the mental of a rookie. And we hear these rookies come in kind of confident, but do you think Mazi's gonna kind of have to shake up and I mean, because he has Hankins in front of him, but do you think the game might be a little too fast for him? Should we kind of temper our expectations, or how do you think the rookie mentality is going to kind of affect him in his first year? So I'll just sit back and listen, bro. Appreciate you, dog.
Salute. Hey man, Mazi seemed like he ready to go. I don't know that mentally. I question Mazi. I don't know him. I just go off of what I see, the film, and what I hear. Is he going to potentially hit a rookie wall? Possibly. That type of stuff happens. But he's not coming in here expecting to be a Superman. I think he's going to come in here expected to be a role player, and I think that'll help, right? I don't think they're going to ask him to do what Micah Parsons did his rookie year, where Micah was literally lining up everywhere. There was a lot put on his plate, and he handled it well because he's Micah freaking Parsons. But Mazi, I think having Hankins next to him, Osa, these guys, there's some quality guys around him that I think will help him not have to be the guy. So I don't know him personally, but the things that I've heard, he's a good hard worker, good work ethic, smart kid, humble kid, but also a damn monster on the field. So I believe Mazi be all right. I believe that. Yeah. Let's get a couple more up in here before we get up out of here. 832, what it do?
What's going on, Scott? What's going on? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, man, I love it when you have Patrik No C Walker on there. He ought to go from no C to no BS. So that brother knows what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah, real quick, man. I like Mr. Walker's analysis of what was going on between Dak and Mike McCarthy as a guard to their relationship as they kind of making this, I won't say transition, but they're making this adjustment to how they're going to approach games. Yeah. I love the fact that they're going to do more to make it easier for Dak to be himself. As I've said many times myself, I think one of Dak's biggest strengths is his decision making. That sounds kind of strange to say, when you
based
talk about
last year,
and whatnot. Yeah, but Dak has always been a very good decision maker, very smart player, despite whatever else anybody might have coming out of their mouth about that. So the freedom that he'll have to process and just go and play, I think you brought it up to me, a couple of times before. That's what they want to get to, a point to where Dak can just go play. And he's not trying to figure everything out because he's already got it figured out. So I like the fact that McCarthy has said, hey, we want to do what you do.
Yeah, I do
Reminds
too.
me of that old It reminds me of that old Bill Walsh story you hear all the time about him taking Joe Montana aside early in his career, going through the playbook and asking Montana, hey, what happened on this play? Montana told him whatever it was, and they just took it out. They didn't run that play anymore. So I love that's happening.
Yeah, you know what?
And, also,
before you move past that, you know what it sounds like is happening? It sounds like he's being coached. And I know that sounds so simple, bro.
No, really.
But that I don't think he was being coached. And then we said this here, right? You know that we've been saying this for a couple years. The relationship with Kellen was so unique. It had its flaws with it, you know. And this is reaching back to what Kitna had to say about how, you know, there wasn't a coach player relationship there. It just wasn't. And now McCarthy, and he might rub Dak the wrong way a few times. So what? How many of y'all played not professional? How many of y'all have played sports, period, whether it be little league, middle school, high school, college, professionally, whatever? You can't tell me you got along with your coach every waking second that you were being coached. No. My dad used to coach me, and I used to hate him sometimes when he coached me. So he wasn't trying to coddle me, and that's how you're supposed to be when you're coaching these players. You got to coach them sometimes. But with that said, I do love the fact that, you know, he's saying, hey, look, Dak, what makes you comfortable here? This only works if you work, right? I have my system. Exactly. I have my style. I have of what I want this team to look like and how I want it to play. But this only works if what you're doing and you're comfortable with. Clearly, they weren't comfortable with a certain number of things last year, and it resulted in miscommunications, et cetera, et cetera. But he mentioned something, and then Dak followed up. McCarthy mentioned, hey, man, we're pushing Dak. Again, he's being coached. We're pushing Dak, and I'm impressed with how he's able to handle it. And Dak said, yeah, you know, they're challenging me, and you know, I'm loving it because I'm able to, you know, grasp all of this, and this is going to help us in the long run. So it may be small, bro, but the fact that Dak is being coached is a great thing. And the last time, in my opinion, that he was coached like that was Kitna. And we saw the jump that he had that same season. Not the next year, the same season.
Right. In 2019, he made that jump. Exactly. And that was John Kitna. Exactly. You're exactly right, guys. So I'm happy to hear it and glad to see it. One more quick thing about Jabril Cox. He was a forgotten man to me. I knew he was injured, and I'm hopeful that's all. It looks like that's all it was. He just wasn't healthy enough to go. Yeah. And they were just being cautious with him. So if that pans out, man, hey, look out. So they look like they're on the right track. Again, nobody's in pads. It's the underwear Olympics still, but looks like everybody's qualifying so far except for your man, Kelvin Joseph. But we'll leave that where it is. Let me let you go ahead. Let me let you go, man, Sky. Great show again, as always, man. Thank you for taking my call. I'll holler at you, my friend.
Always, brother. Good call. You always have fantastic calls, by the way, man. Salute. Yeah, that's what I took away from him, man. Like, Dak Prescott is being coached for the first time since 2019. I think he came in this league being coached, obviously. Scott Linehan wasn't coddling Dak Prescott. When I say coddle, I don't mean emotionally. He coddled the offense to make sure it was in his advantage. And then 2019 gets here, you get John Kitna. At the same time, the play caller was the same, but you had Kitna coaching him. There's whispers that he liked Nuss a lot, but I mean, I'll leave it at that. I think Kitna was better for him. And now we're going to get McCarthy getting a chance to actually coach him up. And does that mean he's coaching him up and you know, chewing him out or something like that? Nah, he's quite literally, you know, coaching him to what works for him, what's best for you. I think there was an example where, I don't know, it was Pat or somebody been on, it might have been Bobby, who said, hey, Dak came to the side and said, hey, what should we do here? And then McCarthy said, nah, what do you want to do? Let's make sure that it works for you. Same thing with the story that Mike McCarthy had brought up with Duquesne. If you don't know what Duquesne is, it's a PA Pittsburgh thing, college up there, whatever. They didn't know how to say the name, and he's like, is it Duquesne, is it Duquesne, whatever you want to call it. You in a huddle. We need to make sure that this thing is comfortable for you and 11 men in that huddle. And I don't know that was always necessarily the case. It was, hey, this is our system. We're not really going to change, if you want to call it a system, because it really wasn't. We're not really going to change what we do to fit you guys best. We're going to try to fit you into this system, and not just Dak, but everybody else. So that was kind of always the issue. Works when you're playing against certain teams, and doesn't work when other teams see that coming. And I want to run this back. If you missed this earlier in the show, Dak was Christy Scales, I think, who brought up, hey, Dak, what's up with the new offense from a tempo standpoint? Are you guys trying to add more plays to it, et cetera, et cetera? And Dak had this to say about it.
I think it's all of it in the sense. Obviously, when you can change your pace, you're going to catch them off guard. You want as many at-bats as we like to say, so we're going to try to get as many plays as we can, more plays, more chances for the big plays. And then lastly, we want to be the aggressors. You know what I'm saying? We want to be attacking these guys, and when we're able to switch the tempo, whether it be no huddle, whether it be a series of them, whether it be slow it down, we just want to make sure that we're dictating the pace, we're being the aggressors, and the game is on our terms and not theirs.
Man, this is such a change, y'all. Y'all remember the buzzword? Aggressively take what the defense gives you. That I think that's what Kellen said a lot when they asked him about the offense. Oh, we're just taking what the defense gives us. Week in, week out. And it's like, look, I get it. Every offense has to do that to an extent. They have to take what the defense gives them, especially when mad teams are playing shell. But you could sense it in Amari Cooper. You could sense it in other players. They were growing frustrated with, hey, look, we can be the aggressor. We got the guys to go out here and make the damn play. We got a guy at the very least to go out here and make a damn play. Give us the opportunity to do that. And I don't think McCarthy is with sitting back anymore. I think they're trying to be the aggressor. Now they're going to do it strategically, right? They're going to try to marry it with the run game, and they're going to try to play complementary football. But honestly, man, it's a breath of fresh air here to hear that we want to be the aggressor. I don't recall that being a theme for the Cowboys over the last few seasons. If y'all remember them saying anything like that, let me know. But I don't. No, sorry, Bob, I don't. All right, one more, man. Nacho, what's up, man?
Will Smith. Good morning, man. How you doing?
You said Will, we said Will Smith?
Did I call you Will Smith?
You did. What's up, bro?
Will Steele. How you doing? Hey, listen, let me ask you a specific question, and Cowboys Nation as well. Now, with what we know already, through mini camp and as we head into training camp and all the questions and so on, with the extra money that we do have in place, if you had an opportunity, do you go and get yourself pending between now and training camp on how you see things? Do you go get yourself that veteran running back that we're talking about?
Dalvin Cook.
Do you do right? Okay, or do you get that left guard if you still haven't solidified that, or do you go get another defensive player to go along with what we have? If you're going to spend that money, you spend it on a running back, an offensive lineman, or another key defensive player.
It's a fun question. That's a fun question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I love it because I do think they're going to add somebody. And honestly, you named you didn't name a position defensively, but the position I was thinking about was linebacker. If you remember a couple weeks ago, we did kind of a little segment where we talked about free agents out there that could fit the Cowboys from a depth standpoint. You talked about the guard position. Trey Turner was a guy out there that we brought up. Linebacker for me, I think it was Deion Jones, and there was another dude we brought up. I can't remember who the other linebacker was. And now Dalvin Cook is out there. But there was other running backs too, Leonard Fournette. There was a bunch of other guys out there on the market. Good question. I want to ask the chatters that as well. With all this extra money, what position would you sign? Right off the bat, you would think, give me somebody at left guard. Trey Turner.
Sure.
But I reached out to someone about Trey, and they essentially was like, no. Duke, I think it was Duke. Yeah, I reached out to Duke, and Duke was like, not worth it. So I'm going to adhere to what Duke said. So if Trey's not worth it, there's not many out there. I know there's the Reisner kid, but there's the kid from or not a kid. I shouldn't call these guys kids. They're not kids. There's a guy from Washington that's out there, but
yes,
I ain't gonna lie to you, Nacho.
Young, right?
Boy,
young,
thinking
right?
about Dalvin Cook with Tony Pollard. Wow, that is
That'll just
wow.
Right? That would just solidify. And the reason why I was asking that specific question is because I'd like to think that based on what we hear, based on what we're seeing so far, I mean, this team is finally looking like that kind of really a complete football team. They're putting all the pieces together finally. And as Cowboys fans, it's like we've been waiting for obviously way too long, for this team to get to a title game and eventually be a representative in the Super Bowl. And I think it's pretty vivid that we are there. We are there.
Let me say this.
So if you go ahead.
Let me say this. If the Cowboys move Tyler Smith into guard with Tyron Smith at left tackle, here's a caveat. And Waletzko shows that Waletzko can be a legitimate swing tackle, then I would scratch left guard off the list. I will continue to develop guys like TJ Bass or Forniak if they think he can be a left guard, Edoja. I will continue to let those guys kind of develop because I got my starter. So I will scratch that off the list, and that will entice me more to go get the guy we talked about.
Absolute. So that'll be the exciting part because I'd like to think that this team is now getting to that point where they're going to have that, where we've never had that kind of a luxury option, if you will.
The hump move, like the real hump move. Yeah, like we're in position to make another hump move. Like financially, we're in position to do it. I think from a roster standpoint, we're in position to do it. And from a competitive standpoint, we are. Like if you're the Panthers, you're not making a hump move. It's not happening. There's no more of those to be made for you to try to get over the hump of getting to. So I don't think that's going to happen. For Dallas, though, they are in position to make another hump move given what's out there in the current state of their roster and the current state of the NFC. So, I mean, they've been moving different, Nacho. I wouldn't have thought they would have went out and traded for Gilmore or Cooks. They made a hump move in the offseason when it first began. Could they make another one? They've been moving different. Maybe they do.
And we'll end it with that. And that is my main question is I'm going to really be very excitedly waiting to see. They got to know. They got to know what they want to do and what options are coming to them, whether they do it now or they wait till training camp. But it's that one big move that we're talking about that will be the game changer, whether it will be offensively or it'll be defensively, to get this team to just, you know what I mean?
They don't need much. They don't need a big move defensively. There's no big move to be made defensively. But there honestly isn't many big moves to be made in general. These are. There's not too many hump guys out there. The hump player I think right now is Dalvin Cook, unless you're trading for another guy. But even then, some people scoff at Dalvin Cook, which is wild to me. Man, maybe need to go back and watch him. But nonetheless, man, fantastic question. It got me thinking.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, man.
Appreciate you, Nacho.
Thank you.
I wonder if they view this opportunity or this team the way we do. And y'all know me, I'm first to get on Stephen Jones. But Stephen ended his I don't have the audio. He ended one of his pressers talking about the future, right? He was saying he always talks about the next year, but he didn't bring up a specific year. If we go back to last year, do you remember when he was talking about Amari Cooper? And he was like, but 2023, 2024, 2020. He was naming years down the line. I'm like, but Steven, you just came off a 12-5 season. You should be trying to get this thing done in 2022. Well, they asked Stephen Jones about the contract situations and the futures and the Micahs and all that stuff. But then Steven spun the block and said, yeah, but we're focused on 2023. And I was like, that came out of Stephen Jones' mouth. Stephen Jones don't talk about the present. Stephen Jones constantly looks outward and looks beyond what's happening in front of him. So I used to have, and I still have slight concerns about guys like Stephen Jones thinking about this current team. But when he came out and said, no, but we're thinking about 2023. We're trying to win now, essentially. That's a different mentality coming out of him. So maybe They use these next 7 weeks or whatever it is. They evaluate what's out there on the market. Maybe he's not lying now when he says talent evaluation or personnel acquisition is 365 days a year. We'll see. But if he is focused on now, and this is why I said earlier in this conversation, I wonder if they're looking at it the way we are looking at it, the way I'm looking at it. Like, hey, look, I don't care about 2024. Your team is in such a good state right now, barring injury, right? That it doesn't hurt you to add more talent. It doesn't. And there's nobody out there that you're going to sign that affects you, in my opinion, long-term for the other guys. The Steels, the Dax, the Micahs, the Diggs, the Lambs. I don't think anybody's signing that it really dents your cap in the future for that. So we'll see. We'll see if Stephen Jones has turned a page and he is thinking about the current. If he's thinking about the current, the question that Nacho asked, hey, left guard, running back, defense, adding a guy, I'd still be looking. I will 100% still be looking to add somebody. More for me be offensively. I think defensively they're pretty much secure there unless they want to go linebacker, which I'm cool with. But I feel like running back, and I like the running backs we got. We can line up right now. I'm not tripping. But if you got a chance to add a dude, like I saw somebody here bring up Derrick Henry, I don't think that's going to happen. But Dalvin Cook is out there. That's all I'm saying. And I'll leave it at that. Let's get to these super chats. The 8th? Yes, the 8th. Chris dropped one earlier. We don't have them 304s.
Super chat.
Chris is talking about another Chris Sims. He said Chris Sims was talking about Dak's INTs, and he literally said, quote, just because the ball hits the wide receivers in the hands, it doesn't mean he should catch it. I mean, okay, Chris Sims. I don't care about Chris Sims, but what? One of the first things you're taught as a receiver when you're young is the ball hits you in the hands, catch it. Now I get there's context. Hey, was it 3 yards in front of you and he threw a bullet? Was it a high pass? Whatever. But I mean, I don't. Chris Sims, whatever. We are grateful.
Super chat.
He dropped 2. Appreciate you. FRK 180.
Super chat.
He dropped 10 in the super chat. Thank you, man. He says, salute to Sky. Killing the game. We appreciate you. Over 500 in the chat battle royal. Can we get the whole chat to hit the like button, please? 1, 2, 3. All hit the like button. We'll get about 500 likes in here, and it'll run up that algorithm. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the super chat. And then Iceberg Q just dropped 2 and said,
super chat.
Is it really one and done with Pollard? I'm at this stage right now. I feel like, yeah. Pat said he thinks something will get done. I don't know if they in the market though to continue to not continue, but to pay running backs. And let me say this about it, right? He's getting $10 million on a franchise tag. How do you realistically go to the table and come under that? Because the market has been reset, believe it or not. The market has been reset to under $10 million. Now, obviously, Saquon might change that next year. He's on a tag as well. Maybe somebody pays Derrick Henry again. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. But it feels like the market has been reset at running back or brought back down to normalcy. But how do you go to the table if your TP's representatives and say, yeah, we'll take 7.5 when you're paying me 10? So that's why I find it hard to believe that they'll get a long-term deal done, because I think it's going to start at 10 minimum and rise to 12, 13. And I don't see Dallas paying, 10, 11, 12, $13 million per year to Tony Pollard. So yeah, I don't think that's ever happening. QVR 3 years, $21 to $24 million. Unless Tony says, look, I'm willing to come $3 million under what I'm getting paid now. Maybe that I want to stay in Dallas. I'll play for cheap. Now, as representatives would be like, what are you doing? The NFLPA would be like, what are you doing? But maybe Tony says, I don't care what y'all say. I'll come play for cheaper. But the same thing happened with Dalton Schultz. Once you pay Dalton Schultz $11 million, you can't go underneath $11 million. That's just the way the business works. It has changed, L, 100%. Yeah, Quan, I ain't worried about no goddamn Chris Sims, man. Chris Sims.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Hey, man, if y'all enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor. Like my guy FRK180 said, hit the like button only if you enjoyed the show. We had Pat Walker on today with the science during our scientific method segment, and we reviewed minicamp. I feel like minicamp, for the most part, happened the past 2 days. So we really got, I think, the best inside information that we can get. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I feel like today they're going to take things easy, possibly end practice early. That's kind of been what Mike McCarthy has done of late, and they're being cautious with a lot of these guys. But we'll get Pat on next week. If they do have a legitimate practice, we'll review that practice and get prepared for training camp in the next 6 or so weeks. God, that's a long time, man. I'm not too happy about that. July 24th, they will be flying out to training camp. 25th, they should be starting it. And it sounds like, if you weren't here, watch, the 31st, they'll be doing padded practices. I know Mike McCarthy kind of slipped up and said May 31st. I think he meant July 31st. So that's actually great news. Now I know the date that they're going to be padded up. I can start planning around that specifically. So, look, if you're going to be down there, man, holla at us. We'll be down there 100%. So, later today, watch, unless anything changes, we'll be on live. And then Mo will be on for the final show of the week for A to Z Sports Prime Time. Make sure I check that out. Mo continues to get better and better in this thing. And if you want to continue to look up any other Cowboys content, keeping up with Dallas, A to Z Sports Dallas.com. Fantastic writers will keep you up to date. Yes, sir. TC915. We will be in Oxnard. Likely. I mean, I can't give a date, but we'll be in Oxnard. I'll let y'all know when we'll be in Oxnard, man. All right. With that said, good stuff today. Apologies for coming on late, but I gotta hit this button. Technical difficulties. Ain't gonna let it hold me back though, man. I really do appreciate y'all for not abandoning me when I'm super, super late. Y'all know I'm be late. It's just how late the sky can be today. We here though, man. We here, man. Love y'all for it. All right, we good. All right, man. I'll see y'all tomorrow or later. Peace.
Bomb Squad!